then let's go to the next presentation from Claire. Claire Chocatier is one of the data stewards at the Technical University at Graz. And she is also a researcher. She's doing research in biomedical things, and she will talk about data sharing for integrated computational methods. And I'm very interested in this kind of talk. Please, the floor is yours, Claire. Thank you.
So now to introduce the topic of reusing data from a, let's say, more discipline-specific point of view, I will also be concentrating on the biomedical science. And yeah, to start with, a short view on a comic. What I or my group was doing the last years. It's a little bit like this, but it's also to have an idea and have to think about the ideal future which will live open science with all of its opportunities and challenges. So to begin with, this was a study we've done about a year ago on the general attitude towards data sharing upon several participants in our interview study. So we had interviewed people from PA, this stands for public administration, so organizations, and then from academia, and FPO, this stands for-profit organizations, or mainly industry, and all of the participants can be divided into the groups related to topics on AI, on health, on geosciences, on mobility and logistics. We had also participants from insurance and financing, as well as IT. And to sum up what we found out, you can have a look on the bar chart. The knowledge about FAIR principles is the highest among the academia participants, obviously. Still, after describing the content behind FAIR principles, its importance has been more or less acknowledged by the participants from public administration, but less from the for-profit organizations. And then regarding the question on the reuse of data, this is, of course, mostly done in academia, and to a lesser content by for-profit organizations and in the area of public administration. And in regard to data sharing with others, this is due also to policy requirements, the highest among participants from public administration. So, and it's a little bit less in case of academia, and even less, sorry, but less than half of the participants for profit organizations. Just to conclude, on the right bottom, you also see the involvement of size of organizations. So we try to concentrate on small and medium-sized organizations, but we also covered several organizations with more than 250 employees. So then we can continue also from a general point of view. What's the actual intent to sharing data. So for once, there's the point of an aggregation effort, but also data sharing has to be done within close consortia, like projects, and here also including controlled access, data sharing initiatives. Then there's the option of voluntary sharing of deposited data, just for sake of distribution. And of course, there's the point for fulfillment of funding mandates, data sharing policies and guidelines, and an archival purpose. And the main stakeholders involved for data sources are research organizations, then publishers, and also service providers, and the end users in gray can be summarized also to researchers as well as citizen scientists. And when talking about the actual intent of data sharing, I can also summarize the intent of reusing data, especially from point of view, from biomedical point of view. And here, data can be used for comparison and for control. It can be used to validate one's own model, to test novel tools and statistical methods that have been developed within a research group, and obviously to check for reproducibility and test for same outcomes, and to request for research infrastructure in regard to an aggregation effort. And now to come to the biomedical perspective, when it comes to reusing data in a biomedical domain, it can be categorized for several purposes, like annotation and clustering, classification, extrapolation, merging and enrichment, as well as functional association, for some examples given. And in regard to computational methods, we described an in silico pipeline. This starts with one manual input into databases, storing patient information, literature, images, experimental data, or direct data input into computational tools. And these lead then to, pointed out as to refinement and retrieval over using computational tools for classification, for inference, for validation, and also prediction. And this can or should result in an output for research strategies, for model refinement, for diagnosis, treatment, and long-term therapy. Now, what's actually available in the biomedical domain? There are data providers by international institutions and also national resources, providing curated high quality data resources. And the two most prominent providers are NCBI, which stands for National Center for Biotechnology Information from the United States. And from a European point, from the European partners, it's the EMBL-EBI, which stands for the European Molecular Biology or European Bioinformatics Institute from the UK. And regarding those two prominent players, they provide literature resources, but also data like expression data, the area expressed. This is from the NCBI, from the EBI. And then there's the, for us, most important example, Cancer Genome Atlas. This is provided by NIH, which is part of or related to NCBI. and several other resources. We had a look on. Maybe I will introduce some of them later. And in regard to data providers, there's also the option to provide sensitive data in a controlled way. We're talking about controlled data, so they are available upon request. You have to register and wait for approval to be able to download them. Some examples are given by the NIH clinical data, and more specific resources are the NIDDK Central Repository for Diabetes Disease, or BioLink for heart and blood diseases. And there's also the database dbGaP for genotypes and phenotypic data, and TCA, it's the Cancer Imaging Archive. So in regard to imaging, maybe one would ask for why it should be controlled. Nowadays, AI has become quite able to reassign imagery data to patients. So here, one TCI had been open before, and now they mostly have provide controlled data. So one example. So what's actually out there available? In the case of biomedical domain, there are electronic health records on phenotypes, drug responses, and survival. There's some examples. Then there's imaging data, which can be used for prediction, for classification, also biomarker analysis. Then there are data on proteomics. They can be used mainly for classification, for signaling analysis, for also for biomarker analysis and drug responses, some examples. Then there is data on metabolomics. This can be used for identification, for prediction and validation, as well as genomics. These mostly used for classification, but also for validation. The interactome, as another example not mentioned before, and again prediction. And all of those data mostly can be summarized as omics data. And we had a closer look on several of these data resources. One example was the use case of tumor growth. We wanted to do a spatial and temporal analysis, and had a look on the resources available, which can be used for our question mind, and to integrate them together. And so there's a lot of available cancer-related open data, and this can be categorized in several sub-disciplines. And still, most of them are genomic data and imaging data, and more rarely you can find corresponding data on temporal and spatial information. And we had to conclude that we still need to use text mining on incidence reports and open access publications to actually retrieve such data. Then, and for another use case, we had a look on protein-protein interactions. There are also several resources available, with all of them individual advantages and disadvantages. And we concentrated on the visual analysis of protein networks and web visualizations, and to narrow down the available resources. So the idea is here to integrate these basic data collections and then use tools, available tools, facilitating the information access and facilitating also the aggregation and integration of this data. And this can be then used for human processing, resulting into several outcomes like specific protein interactions, identifying novel interacting proteins, characterizing interaction dynamics, and expanding the set of protein functions. And then I will give another example on pediatric resources. Here we had a closer look on use cases for childhood cancer, so pediatric cancer databases. And one has to keep in mind that the incidence due to the number related to pediatric cases is lower, and the resources are less abundant and less known. By using 5 users-defined search scenarios and several data mining tasks, we concentrated again on an interactive visual analysis. And here we looked, as one use case, we looked at the top mutated genes. The top mutated genes within pediatric glioma. This is a brain cancer. If I haven't noticed, if I haven't mentioned before, I'm sorry. So from integrating these several data sets, we could also identify a so far uncharacterized protein in regard to be a potential biomarker for the pediatric subgroup of glioma patients. And when talking about pediatric databases, we also did another study again on glioma, the young glioma patients. And we were questioning whether there are appropriate age groups in relation to diagnosis and therapy. And here we used a clustering approach as well as a classification approach together with explainable AI. And we thereby could highlight novel age groups with distinct biomarkers. As spaces, we concentrated to integrate data sets, especially from the younger patients. We had to narrow down the complete data set by data sets used, and then we could finally point out several genes which so far had not been associated with glioma classification. Now, to continue with another use case, I already mentioned before the data resources on imaging. We had a look on MRI data. So magnetic resonance imaging plays a central role in the diagnosis of glioma, so brain cancer, as a non-invasive method. And we had a look on explainable AI, if it can be used together MRI images to predict the survival of glioma patients. So in this regard, we optimized previous models to use 3D so-called voxels, and the images here given are some examples what explainable AI can do. It will highlight by coloring. So this is again a visual analysis. The mode of action of the model. So it's just an estimation, but still it will point out which parts of the images will positively or negatively change the outcome. And in this study, we highlighted explainable AI as an add-on to support the evaluation. There are 4. So now to continue with talking about open data from a biomedical point of view, we also recently published an opinion paper where we advocate the reuse and sharing of data in support of cancer science. And therein we highlight AI methods based on open data for insight generation and present several use cases in glioma research. And these can be categorized in groups of tumor growth, migration, angiogenesis, and then another use case would be for biomarker discovery, grading, subtyping, drug and pathway analysis, then diagnosis and survival, and epidemiology, education, investigation, and biometrics. And these use cases are all based on the integration of simulation and modeling data, clustering and network analysis, radiomic analysis, and last, especially on science communications. And so far, there are several resources available, but the full potential is, we are still far away from the full potential. Let's put it like this. To conclude, poster for those who know my image from my office. I have it behind my desk. This is just a summary view on how open science can be used from a biomedical perspective, but also for other discipline-specific research use cases. I would just state, let us leverage open science to accelerate research. And now I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Claire. Coming from the humanities, it opens a new world for me, I have to say. And I learned that opening data is really very, very important in your field, in the biomedical field. So I'm looking for questions. I hope I can see the hands on. We have some. You can also put questions in the chat. I can't see any hands now and no question in the chat, if I'm right. So then let me ask one question, but not about your research, but about your role as a data steward. And I would like to know what are the questions from the other researchers to you as in the role of a data steward? What do they ask? What is the main question? You can say.
Okay. The main question I always hear is, what do I get from it? So mostly they have to do something they haven't been used to before. So additional tasks to their daily workload. And regarding research data management, most think it's just work and less benefit. Let's put it like this. Yeah, and then you have to argue with them.
Okay. Is it easy to argue or not?
It depends on the individual person. Some are quite critical and not open for other perspectives, and there are those who are open for new ideas. Then it's easier.
Okay. So thank you. Are there other questions from your side? Raman, yes, please.
Yes, actually, I have one question. A little bit related to your talk and also related to the question of Susanne. I'm wondering, does the pandemic have changed something in the mind of the researchers about open data and opening the data? Do you have some experience in this?
The pandemic, so COVID-19 is a prominent example in the biomedical field now. Also regarding medical AI, it's mentioned in several papers. We now we currently have an ongoing study where we try to quantify effects by it. So now I would say it's just one example. Given currently, but the behavior hasn't changed much. So, but still, we are in the course of quantifying the effects. Let's say in future, maybe I can answer it better.
That's very interesting because so publicly there were a lot of announcement that also that because of open data and now the pandemic have changed a lot, and but there are still no evidence or no solid evidence in this. It's quite interesting for me also.
Yes, it's very interesting. Thank you for the question, Raman. And thank you, Claire.